Hi everybody, welcome back. I do apologise, I've had a bit of absence from YouTube. Just to give you a bit of an update, I've set up a Patreon, and on that I'm doing bundles at the moment. It's just been running the last month or two. Over the month of December, there is going to be an advent style, so there's only one activity at the moment till January. So everybody who's on the welcome tier gets an STL pack every month, mostly clay cutter, there'll be some clay tools, and the occasional maybe a vase or trinket dish. So the link is below if you want to have a look. So because of that, my priority has been on Patreon, but I will be trying to pick up YouTube again and the tutorials, but it may just be 1 or 2 a month. Now, because of that, and my promise to get a texture roller tutorial out before Christmas, we're doing that now. It's a little bit ahead of where I wanted to be at this stage, but we'll go through it and we'll be flipping back and forth between basics and slightly more complicated like today's. Just to let you know, on the request list, I've had a few people ask for importing images, whether that be Canvas, SVG, DXFs, so I'll be doing that in a future lesson. How to mirror solid objects in Fusion, I'll be doing that, and also how to render the clay cutters. I have on my Etsy, if you've looked at my Etsy, a turntable style animation for my clay cutter, so I'll go through that in the future as well. But today, you don't need to copy with what I'm going to do at the moment. I just want to show you a couple of the tools that we'll be using, just so you understand the difference between them. And right, so I'm just making a circle and I'm cutting a bit out. We will be using the sheet metal and the flange, so I'm just going to make it 8 centimeters tall. Now, there'll be 2 tools that we're using, one which is the Extrude, which you guys are pretty familiar with. So let me just show you. Now, an Extrude will always do a straight line from that surface, okay? So it doesn't follow the path of the shape. But another one that we'll be doing is the push-pull. Oh, let me get myself in position. Now, in the modify press-pull, I think this is a keyboard shortcut I've used, or I've set. By all means, if you need to set your own, you can change keyboard shortcut, but press-pull. Now, if we use that, and use that, you will see this one actually follows the path, which is why it's going to be important that you know the difference between these two. So let us start off with a texture roller then. So if you guys want to follow along, start off with a new canvas, and I set my texture rollers to 28. You can do bigger, you can do smaller, just beware if you do smaller, you may need to print on a raft or a brim, otherwise because you're building up, it may be unstable. If you print in wider, just could be a longer print and could be quite big for your hands, so 28 is what we're going to set it at. We're just going to draw a straight line at the top, and we're going to offset this by a tiny little bit. So 0.02 is how I set my offset. We're just going to zoom in so you can see it. Now what we need to do is cut this tiny little gap out between the lines. The reason why we need the gap is because we're working on the sheet metal tab. My words are bad. I've had a cold recently, so I may not be the best at explaining. So we're using the sheet metal tab because that will allow us to actually uncurl a cylinder, whereas the other properties don't. You can build like simple geometric patterns on a cylinder using the emboss feature, but it's not going to give you as much flexibility as this sheet metal, which is why I'm teaching you this way. I can certainly do another lesson on a basic one from a cylinder up, but you're just not going to be able to do patterns. So we've got our most of a circle. So we're going to go to sheet metal, use a flange tool, and I'm going to make mine 80 millimeters tall. It will automatically extrude out with whatever the thickness of the rule is, which I believe it is 2.5. Oh, let me just inspect. 2.5 thick, I believe. Yep, perfect. Just going to quickly hide the body because I just want to add another circle to make a complete circle because I'll need that later. And just by having it done ready makes my life easier. Okay, let's just turn bodies back on. Okay, so what we need to do now in this tiny gap, and this is going to be a little bit fiddly to angle it, you want to see this little inner wall here, and we need to extrude it, so not push pull, but extrude it. And I'm only going to do 0.01 because I don't want to close the gap. I just need a little bit of straight body to be able to uncurl the rest. Okay, so we now have that. So making sure we sheet metal, we need to unfold. So the unfold, the stationary entity, well, let me just go back to because I was not explaining it while I did it. So the unfold, so that tiny little sliver that we've done, and then the bend is a curved. So if we zoom out, it is just going to flick back and forth. You can see that it's now uncurled it. Okay, if we ever need to curl it back, which we will do later, it's that button there, the V-fold faces. So we now have created a blank sheet metal. So that's going to be a lot easier to add patterns, to add canvases to. So we're just going to orientate so you can see it. Now you will want to inspect and measure. So 94.865 is how long it is. You'll want this measurement for whatever program you use a pattern in. It's probably going to be easiest for you if you set the canvas width to this. The height doesn't matter so much, but the width to make it seamless, if you set your canvas to that, is great. Like I've already got this pattern set here, and as you can see, the width is 94.725, so it's pretty much there. With something like this where it's not so seamless, you do have the ability to have a little bit more grace. We will cover ones where the lines and stuff join from one end to the other, but for now, with individual objects like this, it will allow you a bit more flexibility, and it doesn't matter if there's a gap, there's nothing to join to the other side. So I've already got this canvas. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a sketch, and it's going to be, we've clicked this sheet metal area here because this is my sketch area. Insert, I've saved the heart pattern as a DXF. If you've saved as a SVG, you can import that. However, I tend to do DXF because it actually saves the dimensions, whereas SVGs, it stands for scalable vector graphic. So it is literally scalable, whereas DXF is set. So I'm just positioning this way, so it doesn't matter so much about the height, it is the width. So I'm just getting that on there. Fabulous. I'm pretty happy with that. Let me just minimize that. Now I'm just going to turn this initial sketch off, just because I don't want to be linking that. There's certain things I want to move here. Let me just turn this off, just because they're not quite where I want them to be. I think I've got a bit too many gaps, so -3. Fabulous, because you can kind of see the highlighted area here. I think I have a gap here a bit too much. Let me just copy this heart. So I'm just copying and pasting just to make sure I don't have too many gaps. Okay, let's just have a quick look. So yeah, I am pretty happy with that. Okay, so we can start extruding. So I've just pressed the E key to bring up this extrusion. And I only want these outside lines to be extruded. So it is just a case of select them. This is not going to be very interesting watching for you while I do this, so I'll just let you know a little bit more about the Patreon as well. So as I said, over December it's an advent calendar, so an STL pack every day. In January then I will be opening up more tiers. I'm not necessarily saying the beginning of January, simply because it's the back end of Christmas. I may not feel too motivated to be proactive in life at that point. But at some point in January, it is going to change. Because at the moment, my 1T offers 2 SGLs or 2 clay cutter SGL packs a month, for $3 US. Quite often I tend to give bonuses, and if you do have a look, I have added a load of STLs in my shop, um, that are just bonus free ones for all my Patreon members as well. So if you do want to have a look, it would be appreciated. I do have my cult shop as well that I will link below if you do need to look at anything like that. But then in January I'll be offering ones. I think there's pencil plans at the moment. Obviously they will cost more, but 10 STL packs a month, then maybe all my clay cutters that I do every month, and maybe all my 3D files that I do every month, but they will be announced in January. So I've selected all my hearts, and I'm going to extrude it by 1 mm. On texture rollers, you don't really want too much of extrusion because you ideally want to print without supports, because that way, far less sanding and everything like that. So just join that. Perfect. So I'm just going to turn the sketch off so you can just see this a little bit easier. So you can see we've got a flat sheet with extruded hearts. Now we're going to go back to the sheet metal. We're going to refold the faces. So that is all rolled up. It's not quite ready to go yet. Now what we need to do, we need to zoom in on this little gap because we need to remove that tiny little sliver. So we're going to use the E for extrude or the solid extrusion. Click on this and I'm going to delete it. So anything more than a -2.5, if your sheet metal is 2.5, is great. It will cut through it all. Now we don't want to print with this little gap, so we're just going to tilt it to see it, and this is where we use a push pull, because it will follow the path of it. Now these gaps here is 0.24. It's a little bit bigger because it's extruded beyond the circle, which is a 0.2 gap. So we just need to do a 0.25. Nope, that's too much. 0.25. It doesn't matter if it's too much because it follows the path, but depending on the pattern, it may impact the pattern a little bit, which you may just have to go down and fix. But that is the base done. If you remembered, I added a circle on in the beginning, just simply because I like my texture rollers to be filled. And therefore, that is my texture roller done. Now, just to show you one thing that I do like to do, because sometimes you may want lines sticking out, sometimes you may want them in. If you go to whatever extrusion step, so it's not that one. Okay, so it's this extrusion step. It'll take a minute for fusion to work, but if I wanted them to be cut in, I can just go, I've clicked on that extrusion step that did it, cut, click OK. And there you go. It's done the exact same roller, but instead of the lines being embossed out, it is embossed out. We're going to go with that as a word, but instead of them being embossed out, it's embossed in. Debossed? I'm not quite sure. Words are not my friend right now. But there we go. So therefore, you can, let me just import the ones I made earlier just so you can see them. So there you go. You can see one with hearts in, one with hearts out. And that is a texture roller. So just a quick recap, this isn't going to be the sole lesson on texture rollers, but it should give you a brief introduction. If you are brand new to texture rollers, I would recommend going with a pattern like this one where it's not continuous lines from one end to the other. I'll be going through that later. There's a little bit more of a push-pull or whatever you call it needed sometimes to join them up seamlessly. However, if you have your particular icons like this, just kind of put some close to the edge so there's not like a solid white gap or anything like that. You can move them around in Fusion like I did as well, but that should give you a good start. But we'll do seamless ones where it joins from one end to the other. We also do ones where you make them completely in Fusion. It is going to be like maybe more time consuming if you don't have Adobe Illustrator or another program that you can make patterns easily in. But it is possible. It will just require more work your end, or it leans more towards using using more like geometric, like circles and squares, shapes very easily built into Fusion 360 for them to be a bit more seamless. But I hope you have I'm so sorry, I'm still a bit ill. But I hope that made sense to you guys. If not, let me know. I'll redo the lesson. I know because of my absence, I may have become rusty with it, to put it nicely. And also, it is 11 o'clock at night and I'm not feeling 100%. So I'm here with all the excuses. But if I need to redo it, I will redo it. But I hope this answers some of your questions, introduces you to some tools you hadn't used before, and puts you on the right path towards making texture rollers. But otherwise, I will see you very soon. But like I said, if you want to check out my Patreon or my calcs, we really appreciate it. Especially as you're going to be getting so many STLs if you do sign up as a member for December. If there's anything you do particularly want to see as well on my YouTube, let me know, pop a comment below. I have, got a little bit of a list due to my absence, but I will be catching up with them soon. But thank you so much. Sorry for the end ramble. You have a lovely night. Take care.